Let's talk a little bit more about properties of acids and bases. We're going to talk about a category called alkalis. These release the hydroxide ion when they are dissolved in water. This is a smaller category of bases, a larger category being substances that accept a proton. All right, so 4 types of alkali: metal oxides and hydroxides, ammonia, soluble carbonates, and hydrogen carbonates. So let's take a little closer look at how these substances actually release a hydroxide. If we start off with the metal oxide, something like potassium oxide, if I add water to that, it sets up the reaction where I end up with potassium ion and 2 hydroxides. Do you need to know that happens? Yes, you do need to know that that happens. The metal hydroxide, we're used to seeing, put this in water, and I end up with the sodium ion and the hydroxide ion. Okay, taking a closer look at the soluble carbonates. I have the carbonate, let's say -2, and water in solution. This will set up the reaction where I end up with the hydrogen carbonate and the hydroxide ion. That hydrogen carbonate will further react and form CO2 gas and the hydroxide ion. Okay. So what about the acids? We talked a little bit about the acids. What about the we talked a little about the base. What about the acids? Acids react with metals, bases, and carbonates to form salts. As mentioned earlier and last year, salts are really just a compound that's formed when the hydrogen of an acid is replaced by a metal or another positive ion. So it is really a soluble salt, a soluble ionic compound. And then the parent acid is really is the acid that went into forming the salt. So it's kind of like a pair of things. The parent acid yields the ionic compound. Okay, so what about these acids? Well, there's 3 types of reactions that you need to know. One is metal with an acid. Okay. This will form a salt and hydrogen gas. So as an example, if we have hydrochloric acid reacting with zinc metal, solid, it will form zinc chloride and hydrogen gas. Then we have the acid and the base. Hopefully you remember that this is going to form salt and water. Then something like hydrochloric acid reacting with sodium hydroxide, forming the salt, sodium chloride, and water. And then lastly, an acid and a carbonate. We'll stick with hydrogen chloride or hydrochloric acid and my calcium carbonate. You should be fairly familiar with this reaction, yielding calcium chloride salt and water, sorry, and CO2 gas.